everyone. Welcome to this Roundup. Space-based systems and capabilities have become an essential component of the digital age as they provide important support to many of our daily activities. While the benefits are enormous and the advances in emerging technologies are creating new opportunities every single day, new risks have also emerged. For instance, many countries have developed warfare capabilities that can even threaten targeted nations' ability to use space. When countries are developing jamming and cyber warfare capabilities, directed energy weapons, and more that can achieve a wide ranging implication, there is a need to take a closer look at the evolution in warfare and in the development of superior warfighting platforms, weapons, and tactics. Now, in an age of electromagnetic warfare, everything is at risk. It is especially when it is not just the war domains that are evolving, war platforms and war weapons are evolving too. And at the core of this evolution are the emerging technologies that are fundamentally transforming warfare. The reason is because today, irrespective of countries or its components, electromagnetic interference and radio frequency interference consistently threatens any infrastructure, operations, platforms, systems, components, any kinds of equipments, and strategic security. Now, since electromagnetic warfare continues to evolve, the need for radio frequency security is becoming crucial. So please join me in welcoming Harshit Agrawal to Risk Roundup. Harshit is currently working as a radio security researcher. He's expected to come to the United States in the coming few months, and he's for now based in India. Welcome, Harshit. Risk Group community and I look forward to your presentation. Please go ahead and share your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Is my presentation visible, ma'am?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes, I can.
So I really appreciate and grateful for being here. So thank you to Risk Group and Jayshree ma'am for giving me an opportunity and inviting me here to share my work and learning. So my title of this presentation is Weaponized RF and its role in warfare operation. So before starting, there's a famous Einstein quote: if World War III were to come, it would lead to the end of civilization. So I not know with what weapon World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be definitely fought with sticks and stones. So there's a reason why he said that. Now the topic is so broad, and on top of that, information on how these systems actually work are highly classified. So electronic warfare, which is EW, which is commonly known as electronic warfare, is the use of any of the electromagnetic spectrum in an attack. So the electromagnetic spectrum includes everything from the X-ray to visible light to infrared to microwave and radio waves as well. So they are all of the same thing, and only difference is in the wavelength. So again, like signal intelligence, which is the intelligence gathering by interceptions of signal, whether communication between people or from electronic signals not directly used in the communication. We have tactical communication, which is being used by military as well. We have in our common life, we have GSM signal, which is used by in our daily life, like we used for making phone calls, to send SMS. We use signals to browse internet, like the Wi-Fi routers. We have Bluetooth inbuilt. So these all signals can be intercepted, and there are so many information which can be integrated from those sophisticated data. So let's see some of the tactics over here. This is all about me. I'm working as an RF security researcher. So thank you, ma'am, for introducing me. My expertise is in RF security, drone security, and IoT security. So previously, I have presented in conferences like RSA, DEF CON, Hacking Paris, or HITB security conferences, where I have conducted various training or webinar related to on these particular topics. So if you have any questions in or after the sessions, you can connect with me over Twitter, LinkedIn, or send me an email. So quickly moving forward, these are some of the topics which we are going to discuss today. So we will start with the era of convergence, like what are the different, we hear about cyber, we hear about electronic warfare, we hear about jamming. So what is the interconnection between all of those things, like the when we talk about the multi-domain operations. So we will take a glimpse of it. After that, we will quickly move forward to electronic warfare fundamentals. So like electronic jamming, we have electronic support, electronic attack. So how are those things integrated and what are the meaning of those things? After that, we will talk about the space warfare, the strategy and tactics. So this is the like main topic of this particular presentation, focusing on the RF side of attacks. Then we will talk about the future of warfare, like what is yet to come in the future. Like we hear about the drone swarms, we hear about the slaughter boat, we hear about the connected soldiers. So what are some of the challenges which we as an risk group, as an like advisory, or we as a security researcher need to address in the future? So modern military forces like rely heavily on a variety of complex high technology electronic offensive and defensive capability. EW is a specialized domain that enhances many air and space functions at multiple level of conflicts. So in this session, like we will discuss about all of these things. So let me start with the convergence. So in convergence of electronic warfare and computer network exploitation or attacks within the radio frequency spectrum, so it describes like how the integration of IP capability in systems using radio frequency for communication provides attacker the ability to exploit system on isolated network. So unlike like cyber and EW protection teams, which are focused on vulnerabilities within their respective areas, adversaries are focused on achieving desired effect and end state goal. So this threat is highlighted by oversight in software and communication system, which developers can recognizing vulnerabilities introduced during the integration of hardware and software. So here in this particular slide, you can see how computer network organizations, CNE team like cyber operations, signal intelligence, electronic warfare are integrated. So again, before starting with any warfare or any military operation, it is very important to have the maximum of information. So it's like the military which is having the more information is having a more chances to win than the army which is having a very good military weapons, like the guns, tanks, that will not matter, but the information which we have, that matters a lot. So that comes all under the psychological warfare. So it's like today, like Facebook post, Twitter post, or they have more potential to do an exploitation rather than a gun and a missile can. So it's like a information warfare bubble which is we are facing in a nowadays. So like if I take a simple example, in India we have faced a riots during the 26th January. So it was all created in the psychological domain. Same thing happens very often with the Indo-China border. Same thing happens with the Israel and Gaza things. So it's, I should not take the physical names of the countries, but it's like the psychological is deception is very often. So it in within psychological deception, if we are talking about the web, mail, spam, or publishing something on the website, that also comes under the cyber operation. As well as if we talk about the spoofing, telecast something, so that also comes under the deception, but also it's a part of electronic warfare. And deception, spoofing can also be a part of a cyber operation. So let me take an example. Let's say if I'm spoofing the signals, like what kind of signals, radar signals I am receiving. So based on that, I can identify what kind of radar enemy have. So that is a part of electronic warfare. But at the same time, if I am using that spoofing technique to know like about the what information I am broadcasting on my IP related network, or what information I have been broadcasting within what I am in browsing through internet. So that is a part of this cyber operation. So this is how like it differentiate between EW and cyber operation, while at the same time they are integrated. In the same way, like a signal intelligence, if we see, so electronic support, CNE, all are the part of signal intelligence as well as cyber operation or electronic warfare. So it's very important to understand like the era of convergence. Now it might sound like this may be like, okay, it's not a big deal, but okay, let's check this particular slide. So this is here you can see an image which is published by NATO, which means multi-domain operations. So It was the previous case scenario like a decade ago when we used to say that air, domain, navy, these three are all different operations, but now it's all integrated. So on the left side, like you can see the Richard Scarry novel. So it's the same situation, how it started and now how it's going. So NATO defines electronic warfare a military action that exploits electromagnetic energy both actively and passively to provide situational awareness and create offensive and defensive effect. So it is a warfare within electromagnetic spectrum, which involves military use of electromagnetic energy to prevent or reduce an enemy effective use of EMS while protecting its use of for friendly forces. So let me take an example. Let's say we have two enemy forces, two army standing in front of one another. One is trying to, let's say, army A and army B. Now army A wants to perform a jamming attack, while it also wants that his own friendly forces should not be affected by jamming attack. So let's say if I am jamming on a frequency of, let's say, 100 megahertz, just for an example. So on that 100 megahertz we will see a large noise. Now due to that noise, it's very common that even my devices will not be able to communicate, as well as enemy devices will not be able to communicate. So what are the tactics like through which I can communicate but my enemy forces can't? So here, like, we can use the tactics like we can have the signature of the noise. We can transmit the signal with the noise, but at the same time, like, our friendly forces know, okay, this is the noise signature which we are broadcasting. So we can decrypt or in Metstam, like, we can subtract that particular noise from the original raw signal. In that way my friendly forces can communicate but enemy forces can't. So this all comes under the electromagnetic spectrum. Now again, one more possibility is like, let's say if we have enemy forces spread all around the ground where we are going to have a battle. So there, if I am having a radar, if I am using the tactical radio, so that particular stuff is leaving some kind of RF signature, which is same like what we have in what we have is a passive radar in our submarines. Yeah. So in submarines, like, what happened, I am actively listening. If I am broadcasting something, if I am trying to broadcast a radar, that, okay, if to know like the enemy locations, at that time my enemy will also know that I am located over here. I will know their locations, but they will also know my location. So in submarines, it is very active technique that we are good listener. We don't broadcast but listen. So same thing apply over here as well. If we are listening for all of the electromagnetic spectrum, if we are monitoring it, then we can know on what frequency, what type of communication is going on. We can work towards the decryption of that type of communication, and we can potentially find some information, or we can like locate the enemy. Look, okay, this is the location where they are located, like using the triangulation methods, TDOA, TOA. So all of these techniques can be applied to localize the troops. So quickly moving forward, modern military forces forces are required to operate in an increasingly complex EME spectrum, which has recently been recognized as an operational environment. So all modern forces conduct operation that depend on some kind of EME, like the electromagnetic environment. So here we can say there is two things. One is electronic warfare. Second is signal intelligence, as we discussed before. So signal intelligence is like based on sources of information from electromagnetic interceptions like radar, communication, which are coming from different sensors. So that sensors can be space or satellite based, air platform, manned or unmanned aircraft, or ground based platform. So by extension, like, signal intelligence refer to all the processing activities of this type of information, which include collection, evaluation, analysis, and dissemination. So this task scope for SIGINT is to detect and analyze and compare with a previously built database. So the EM spectrum, like, for understanding the enemy organization, like what are they planning, or what are the changes which they are going to make. So based on the RF signature, we can identify their moves. So a simple example can be, let's say if I am flying a drone, if I am taking the RF signature of that particular drone, so I can identify, okay, these drones belong to this particular category because this is the RF signature which it is emitting. So same type of research was also published by Carnegie Mellon, where if we are touching any object, so based on the EM energy which is emitted by that particular IoT device or any device, we can identify the object. So in the same way, like we can understand here the concept of signal intelligence for the army. Now here in this image, like you can see what are the different components of electronic warfare. Like electronic attack is there, electronic protection is there, electronic warfare support is there. So you might be already familiar with many of these terms, but any military action which involve the use of electromagnetic energy or directed energy here can be thought of as an all these three categories. So in attack, like we use electromagnetic energy or directed energy or anti radiation weapons to attack personal facilities or equipment, while in protection we use the actions to protect personal facilities or equipment. In support, we provide the support so that enemy or our friendly forces can attack on the devices. So let's say if I am going to attack in some capital of the enemy, so before, like definitely enemy radars will be there, so they can easily locate my airplanes as well and my fighter jets as well. So in that time, like electronic support comes in a play, which we where we have some jamming radars inbuilt in the fighter jets, so they can jam the radar, and my friendly forces can easily enter in the enemy capital. So this is how like we can understand the attack, protection, and warfare. So this is like the so far the basics of or the very fundamentals of electronic warfare and signal intelligence. But now we need to think from a very broad perspective about the space warfare. So movies portray wars in a space like much they do on Earth. So starfighters we have heard about, dogfight. So with unlimited maneuverability and range, troop transports drove from orbit to celestial surfaces to deliver space marines. But that is not how a real space war will took place. So space to space engagement in a modern conflict would be fought solely with uncrewed vehicles controlled by operators on the ground and heavily constrained by the limits which impose like the physics or a movement in space. So how to think about a space war? That's a big question. So let's say war fighting on Earth typically involves competitors, which involve like fighting to dominate a physical location. Opposing military forces fight to control the land, sea, and air over a certain part of Earth to expand influences of other people or resources. So space warfare does not follow this paradigm. Satellites in orbit do not occupy or dominate a single location over time. Instead, satellite provides capabilities like such as communication, navigation, intelligence gathering to Earth-based military. Therefore, to control space is not necessarily to physically conquer of space, but rather to reduce or eliminate advisory satellite capabilities, while also ensuring one restrains the ability to freely operate their own space capabilities. So the weapons used to achieve these goals can be either ground-based, either space-based, or can be reversible or irreversible. So furthermore, like space weapons type ranges from kinetic, which must physically affect a target, to standoff weapon, which can reach a target many miles away. So let's see like what are the different space countermeasures and what are the different weapons and how does it work. So if we discuss about the first thing, which is the kinetic physical counter space. So this is like a weapon which attempt to strike directly or detonate a warhead near a satellite or ground station. So the three main forms of kinetic attacks are like a direct ascent asset, co-orbital asset weapons, and ground-based station attacks. So direct ascent weapons are launched from Earth on a suborbital trajectory to strike a satellite in orbit, while co-orbital asset weapons are like first placed into orbit and then later maneuvered into or near their intended target, while attacks on ground stations are targeted at the terrestrial sites like which are responsible for command and control of satellites or the relay of satellite mission data to users. So kinetic physical attacks tend to cause irreversible damage to the system which is affected and demonstrated a strong show of force that would likely be attributable and publicly visible. So that's why like when we talk about the space warfare, kinetic physical attack is like very easy to do, but again that will be very visible. So right now, like countries like USA, Russia, China, and India, these four countries have successfully tested directed asset weapons. Now, when we talk about the non-kinetic physical counter space, So that kind of weapons have physical effect on satellite or ground system without making physical contact. So that means like laser can be used to temporarily dazzle or permanently blind the sensors on satellite or cause components to overheat. Now, high-powered microwave weapons can disrupt the satellite electronics or can cause permanent damage to electronic circuit and process in a satellite. So a nuclear device like which is detonated in space can create a high radiation environment and an electromagnetic pulse. So it was like I think 20 years before or 30 years before, there was one doctrine which was published by US Army, which addressed like if there's an EMP attack which is in the space, like let's say if we are nuking the nuclear bomb in the space, let's say 100 kilometer or 140 kilometer height, that will have a diverse effect, like that will turn off all the electronics, all the lights of the United States, like that particular area it will cover. So we can understand like what EMP attack effect an EMP attack can have if we have a space warfare. So a satellite lasing systems require high beam quality adaptive optics, which can like go through the atmosphere and advanced pointing control to steer the laser beam precisely. So technology up to date precision is very costly and very sophisticated. So a laser can be effective against a sensor on a satellite if it is within the field of the view of the sensor, making it possible to attribute the attack. But again, there are like geographical constraints which we need to address. And again, let's say there is again one more constraint, like which is the now whenever like if we I want to transmit some information up to some distance, so that particular power and distance relation is like it is inversely proportional to a square. So it's like if I am transmitting at a let's say if my power is 100 kilowatt and I'm transmitting up to a distance of 10 kilometer. So after the receiver, like let's say if there's a radar power transmitter is 100 kilowatt, distance is 10 kilometer, the power need to be transmit reflected from that particular subject, and again I need to receive the signal. So at that time the signal power like which I received is in picowatts. So we can imagine like I'm transmitting 100 kilowatt and I'm receiving in picowatts if a distance is 10 kilometer. So this distance in space warfare is not limited to a 10 kilometer or 100 kilometer. Even like our ISS is located at a distance of 400 kilometer. So we can imagine like what high power energy EMP systems or lasers we will need if we want to do any kind of non-kinetic wave attack. So quickly moving forward, there is again like electronic warfare which can be implemented in the space and the cyber attack. So here like electronic warfare weapons target the electromagnetic spectrum through which space system transmit and receive the data. So one of the simplest example is the jamming, like jamming devices interfere with the communication to or from satellite by generating noise in the radio frequency band. So an uplink jammer interfere with the signal going from Earth to a satellite, such as the command and control uplink, while downlink jammer targets the signal from a satellite as it propagates down to the users on the Earth. So spoofing again is a form of electronic attack where the attacker tricks a receiver into believing a fake signal which is produced by the attacker. So is the real signal is it trying to receive, but a spoofer can be used to inject false information into a data stream or in extremes. So to infuse false commands to a satellite to disrupt this operation. So user terminals like with omnidirectional antennas such as many GPS receivers and satellite phones have a wide field of view and thus are susceptible to downlink jamming and spoofing from a wider range of angles. So electronic form of attack can be difficult to detect or distinguish from accidental interference. So making attribution and awareness much more difficult. So we have seen like GPS attacks in Gulf War, like that was the first advanced war which we have witnessed. So again, like there is one attack which can be implemented on satellite is cyber attack. Now cyber attack like tries to interfere with the transmission of RF signal. So cyber attacks targets the data itself and the systems which are in use to transmit and control the flow of data. So cyber attacks on satellite can be used to monitor data traffic patterns as well as intercept data or insert false or corrupted data in a system. So this attack can target ground stations end user equipment or the satellite themselves. So while cyber attacks require a high degree of understanding of the systems which are being targeted, they do not precisely require any significant resource to conduct. The barrier of entry is relatively low, and cyber attack can be contracted out to a private group or individuals. So even if a, let's say, a state or a non-state actor lacks internal cyber capabilities, it may still pose a cyber threat, because a cyber threat on a space system can result in the loss of data or services which is being provided by a satellite, which could have widespread systematic effects it used against a system such as like GPS. So these are some of the attacks like which are the can be thought of as a counter space weapons. And again, last year in a month of I think in a December only, there was one doctrine published by the White House, HTB-5. So which is especially addressing the space warfare. How can what are the tactics, what are the rules and regulations which is needed from the US government? Like we have Space Force now. So we definitely need some kind of rules and regulations, some kind of countermeasures to prepare our army. So still like till today we didn't hit any space related attacks, but we need to be prepared. So HTB-5, like anyone can read about it. Now to understand like how these effects could play in a conflict, there are a couple of key points which we need to understand. So first challenge is the intensity dissipation. So as I mentioned before, like as an electromagnetic signal, where whether radio frequency or light, which is emitted from a source, the intensity of the signal decreases with the square of the distance from the source. So that is the first challenge like which we need to address, because an object which is 10 kilometers from a source will only experience 1% of the intensity. Again, the second challenge is the precision. So electronic warfare requires a large degree of precision to execute. So in this context, like precision refer to how well an attacker match the signal or a focus on its target. So for a jamming attack to be successful, the attacker must transmit a jamming signal that matches the signal of the target receiver. So either through jamming signal or a large block of signal in hopes of hitting the right signal. So which is like known as brute force jamming, or thoroughly especially matching the targeted signal. So there are like three challenges which we need to face. One is the matching a signal is a combination of achieving the right frequency, polarization and signal strength. Now here the frequency of the signal refers to the number of time the signal oscillates through the space and is correlated the amount of data that can be carried. So knowing the right frequency is very important. Second is polarization, which means like which describes the direction the signal travel as it moves through space. Now signal strength is important because a jamming signal must be at least equally strong as the targeted signal to cause interference. So let's say if my transmitter is transmitting on 100 with 100 kilowatt of power, just for an example, and if I am trying to do a jamming attack of only 10 kilowatt, so that is of no use, because we can understand it like I am speaking with someone and at the same time we have a loudspeaker. So if I want to counter that loudspeaker, my noise should be more than that particular loudspeaker, else my noise will not be audible. So in the same way, like we can understand the signal strength. Now spoofing attack like also require even greater precision. In addition to matching a signal frequency, polarization and signal strength, a spoofer must also broadcast the right type of information on the signal. So as an example, let's say suppose an attacker wishes to use spoofing technique to transmit false troop location to a targeted system. So for the attack to work, the spoofer must know what signal to broadcast and give data that is close enough to the truth as to be believable. So the attacking spoofer must thoroughly understand both the signal itself and how the signal is intercepted by the target system to be effective. So more can be like initiated this insight, the better we can understand the stakes of a geological fight. So that will definitely help in future. So quickly, like here you can see the example, like the formula, like how exactly I have calculated the kilowatt to picowatts thing. So there are so many factors like for the radar frequencies like bandwidth, antenna, transmitter, receiver, propagation, the target frequency. So these are some of the all factors like which matters a lot when we discuss about the jamming, when we discuss about electronic warfare, signal intelligence. So these are some of the common factors, and this is not only limited to the jamming or electronic warfare. The simplest example or the one of the biggest challenge for any military forces is to achieve the stealth technology. So it's like we have a radar cross section which measures how detectable an object is by the radar. So therefore it is called like electromagnetic signature of the object. So a larger RCS indicates that an object is more easily detectable. So here in this particular slide, you can see some of the stealth technology aircraft, and on the left side of it, you can see like what is the RCS value for that particular data. So here we can see like F-35 is having a very limited signature, while again we have B-2 Bird. So they are having a F-22 Raptor that is having a even 0.001. So it's like on a radar we will only see a bumblebee which is flying around. So that is how sophisticated RCS can be. Now, when we talk about the future of warfare, so definitely like cyber warfare, information warfare, we see electronic warfare, command and control warfare, spectrum warfare. So there are psychological warfare. So there are so many different things and different challenges which we need to address in the future. So from the technological perspective, like we have to face so many different challenges. Now we have drone swarms. Now we need to address the RF signature based attacks. Again, there are attacks like which are based on AI, like AI autonomous weapon, like which is using the AI machine learning techniques. So that is again one challenge. We have augmented energy like the connected battle space. The soldiers who are connected with the so many different sensors in their bodies, so they can like easily integrate and transmit the information. Then again, there is a very high level of advancement in what should I say, like RCS level drone swarms. So Slaughter-bot is one of the example. So there are so many different challenges like which we need to face in the future to address the warfare. And out of all of them, like information warfare is at the severe, like ransomware attack, which is very trending right now. But in the future, what I see is like information warfare will be on the superiority. So social media influence, news media influence, so all of these things is a part of warfare. And again, like I will take one simple case study over here to discuss about the future of warfare. Few days back, like there was a news, I think 3 or 4 months before, where a smartwatch, like a smartwatch which we wear in our everyday life to track our health data, what kind of heartbeat I am having, what today, like if I did something in gym, so what how many calories I have burned. So for that particular purpose, we are using the smartwatch. So same thing happened with the Starva, which is a company based in USA. Now that particular watch is been worn by so many different soldiers of the US Army, and all of the data, like there is three things: one is anonymized data, one is pseudo anonymized, and one is identifiable data. So that particular Starva watch is recording the pseudo anonymized data because they are also recording the GPS coordinate and the health data. So based on that health data, we can like easily, if we compare the health data of someone in athletics or someone who is in army to a civilian, so definitely there will be a high range of difference between their heartbeat, between the calories like they are working, the strength they have. So based on all those data in the GPS coordinate, it was something around 29 million data points. So they have pointed those data using the data analysis tactics on a smart map. So they're like what they have identified is the data, health data, which is on the higher level, like more than the civilians, all are belonging to a one specific region. Now that specific region is not yet known because it was in the desert. So when they use the Google map to, and there are like now many different software applications, and many companies like which can provide real-time satellite data if we pay them $100 or $200. So on that particular charge, by paying that much money, we can get the real-time satellite imagery either of that day or a week before that. So they identified like, okay, this is a secret base of US military. So we can understand over here, like just from a smartwatch which is worn by a soldier, and those particular pseudo anonymized data which is uploaded on the Kaggle or the data like a public data forum, so that researchers can perform the research on it. From there, they have like integrated with the satellite imagery, and they have identified the secret base location. So we can understand, like with the growing age of technology, the growing IoT devices, connected soldier devices, all of these battle space environment, what will be the future? That is very easily understandable over here. So quickly moving forward, like to conclude, we can say that this increased degree of connection brings new method for increasing or influencing opposing forces. So we have discussed the thought of increased cyber attack. Maybe there are other methods that could be employed to disrupt the communication backbones. So how will electronic jamming or other RF effects influence the total vulnerability? They may become irrelevant due to the increased use of fiber, or alternatively become increasingly powerful as the network transmission to transitions to wireless technology. So the move to wireless technology obviously will open the door to increased use of jamming or other EW related methods. But how would that construct influence military operations? Open air architecture bring that realm of vulnerability to the network. Combined effects of electronic warfare and cyber to disrupt communication and even operation like will likely to be significant requirement for military forces in the future. So in conclusion, like the combined effect of non-federated network, like encoded data on the network, increased use of wireless network and advanced high power jammer will continuously push the realm of cyber and electronic warfare. So the growth in these two realms will undoubtedly continue, bringing changes to future warfare that will move the center of focus from kinetic operations to that of non-kinetic. So the threat of overpowering cyber and EW forces will likely generate increased funding of non-kinetic research and a shift in operational mentality. So could this be the next Cold War or just the unseen war? So that's like I will leave you with this question to think about. This is all about me. If you have any questions, you can definitely connect with me. So the greatest victory is that like which require no battle. So with this famous quote by Sun Tzu, I will conclude this session, the presentation.
No, that was wonderful, Harshit. That was a great presentation. And you addressed some very crucial points about not only the challenges we are facing today, but what the challenges will be in the coming tomorrow, especially when we look at our ecosystem. The convergence is not only between cyberspace and space, the convergence is also between aquaspace, geospace, and even the coming quantum space. So the challenge is that the status, the state that you talked about, the military operations and how where the warfare is leading. The challenge is that as the convergence is going on between all the different domains, the convergence is also going on between nations, its governments, militaries, industries, organizations, and individuals. So if you look at the civilian sector or a commercial sector or a military, everything is converging, especially if you're looking at the cyberspace and the dependency on the space. So if we talk about the dependency of military and perhaps commercial and civilian operations on electromagnetic warfare and electromagnetic surveillance, that is the central facet of almost all activities as security forces around the world. They will have to integrate these electromagnetic warfare capabilities. It's not just military, but the commercial and civilian, everybody will have to integrate this capability into all their platform systems and components. Now, since the systems are connected across all nations' components, how is the electromagnetic surveillance designed to protect the information environment of the entire nation? The point that you made that it's very difficult to attribute the whether it was an intentional or unintentional warfare or the attack coming from the any kind of spectrum. So how can we designing the surveillance to protect the information environment of the entire nation? Because this is the digital age, and if the electronics are attacked and the spectrum warfare is accelerating, then what should nations be doing?
Yeah, so definitely like any challenges which is involving the use of radio frequency, it's very difficult to address those kind of threats. So when we talk from the military perspective, like all of the devices like which military is preparing, they prepare it from like they also do a testing where they check for the RF leakage, the RF signal leakage. So it should be like any devices or any weapons that should have a minimum RF signature. So that is why like whenever they develop any military weapon or military fighter, or as I like, if you remember in my presentation, I discussed about the RCS, the fighter jets RCS, the stealth technology. So this is the radio frequency which is being broadcasted by the let's say the heat signature which we have in the fighter jet, the in the heat which is generated by the engine, then again the communication or the jamming like the devices which we have in our fighter jets. So all of these RF signatures can be easily tracked, and this is how like we design the missiles to track the RF signature. So same challenge is like right now which is being faced is with the drones. So let's say like if we have the fighter jets, we can definitely with the smart design we can counter the stealth with the stealth technology. But drones, which is a very big threat right now, because they are a very small in size, it's very difficult to detect them on the radar. So the RF signature for that particular drones is very limited. Like I would say, like it's we can imagine like if we have the build radar to track the aircraft, and the same if we want to track the drones, which is like hundreds of the size of the airplane or fighter jet. So how difficult it would be. And most of the drones are like right now made with the plastic body or very low components like a very small battery. So that will have a very limited RF signature. So that is again one of the factor like which we need to address in the future. Like definitely, like there are many radars which are designed to be to detect the drone or their but the drone can only be detected in exceptional circumstances. Like small size would be one way, but in order to be effective, bigger is better. Now detection has many aspects, and one of them is like soon detection. As soon as the detection happens, it all of you need to stay undetected while you approach the target. So only the frontal aspects needs to be considered. If however you want to stay undetected for the whole mission, the task becomes much more harder. So countering the RF attack like every time it's not so easy, because
Yeah.
one way or another it will leave some kind of RF signature. Again, like I
Yes.
will here bring one more important point to counter the RF signature. Now we have designed our weapon with the use of AI and machine learning, so that it can like do the operation by itself, and there will be no reverse communication with the command and control. So this is like the new way like army is addressing for the reducing the RF based attack.
Yes, no, that's a good point, and the point that you made about autonomous drones, and uh, that is a complex challenge, because if you look at the commercial sector, most countries' grids are, the ownership is private. It is not, public. Some countries they have, public electric grids. But if you look at the electric grid, it is the center of gravity for any nation. So how worried should any nation be of any such EMP attack on their electric grids, using the autonomous drones?
Yeah, so autonomous weapons, or like if you have seen about those, if you have heard about the slaughter boats, so that particular drone is like designed to attack by itself. Like the facial recognition technique is being used. So on a very daily basis, like we hear so many drone related attacks. Today only like there was an attack in the Oman country. We hear about the drone based attack in the like I think in a month of June we had a drone attack in Jammu Kashmir, like where the army base was attacked. Then we had a drone attack, like there are many sightings where drone is in a close proximity of airport. So again, in like as you mentioned about the oil field or the power plant. So the we have witnessed the drone attack on the Saudi Arabia oil field. I think last year that happened.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, in Armenia. Yeah. So those kind of attacks is very familiar, and we need to be prepared about it, because see, if I talk about the India only, like case I am from here, so if I take a consider here a case scenario, so right now like hardly any army military bases are designed to detect the drone technology. So it's very difficult, because we need a solution which need to be incorporated in each and every critical infrastructure systems, which involve our power plant, which involve our hospitals, which involve our data centers, government buildings like the parliament, Lok Sabha, army bases, airport. So it's not a one way or easy solution. Now again, the threat is like if someone is planning to do a drone attack, it's hardly possibility like the drone will come as a single entity. Drone swarm is there. So
Yes.
in that case, like it's very difficult to, if let's say if there is a one drone, it might be easy for us to like many people's or many military forces can fire on it and or throw the net. So if one drone is there, it may be easy to neutralize it. But if a drone swarm is coming, then we can imagine the situation like how difficult it would be, because they are all autonomously flying. They are in a number of 10, 100 or maybe 10 thousands of those drones. So that is the challenge with those particular things.
Yes, absolutely. That is a very complex challenge, and that is why we need more people like you, the researchers who pay more attention. They study, what needs to be done, where are the challenges, and how we can prepare ourselves, our country, and our civilization, so that we don't have to go back to the Stone Age. So, thank you so much, Harish, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight into the RF security and electromagnetic warfare, and I'm sure our global viewers and listeners will benefit tremendously from what you had to say today. And as a result, this Risk Roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you're most welcome. So Risk Group is a strategic security risk research platform and community. Through the Risk Roundup initiative, Risk Group and I are on a mission to talk with a billion brilliant minds. The reason behind this effort is to research, review, rate, and report strategic security risk facing humanity. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Until next time, I'm Jayashree, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.